Welcome to our community church, Unitarian Universalist. I'm your worship associate, Jim O'Neill, and it's a joy to be with you today, both in person and virtually. For those of you who are visitors, you might ask who we are as Community Church. We are a progressive, open-minded, and inclusive religious community. We welcome all who are on a spiritual search for truth and meaning. Ours is a faith in action as we do the work of social justice and elevate compassion in our quest to live ethically, recognizing the inherent worth and dignity of every being. Please look to your weekly email for announcements. We also have an announcement today from Michelle Foster.
Good morning. I am looking for some volunteers to help with coffee hour to sign up as hosts. I'm hoping to get a rotating list of people. If we can get 8 people, that would just be once every 2 months. All you have to do is come in a little early, 30 minutes early, set up coffee, stay a little late, clean up. And we are now stocking cookies in the freezer. So if you want to make or bring your own treats, you can, but you don't have to. We'll have some on hand. So please see me at coffee hour if you are willing and able to sign up. Thanks.
We're delighted to welcome back to our pulpit today Malone, a long time from birth member of CCUU, former teacher and airplane pilot. He's presented before, and we look forward to hearing him today. We begin our worship with a custom of chalice lighting, invoking hope and eternal truth through our worship. Before I do that, though, let's join in the land acknowledgement, which is on the back of your order of service. We acknowledge and pay tribute to the original inhabitants of this land. The city of New Orleans is a continuation of an indigenous trade on the Mississippi River. Thousands of years and millennia. We recognize that as a result of broken treaties and voluntary removal, Native Americans were forced from their lands. We remember and pay respect to the communities impacted by these actions. Native peoples have lived on this land since time immemorial. And the specific voices of Native Americans remain inseparable part of our culture. Gratitude and honor we acknowledge indigenous nations that live and continue to thrive. Please join us in singing "We Light This Flame," found in your order of service.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I'm going to share with you a reading. It's A Balance in Life by Catherine Pulsifer. How do you get a balance in life? Our time can sometimes create such strife. How much of your time is focusing on getting to the top and being number one? There is so much life than just making money. Look at relationships and spending time with your buddy at the end of the day. You will see that these things, relationships, are key and happiness they bring. And if only you seek to have fun and play, you will not find happiness each day. As time goes on with no goals in mind, life has a tendency to leave you behind. The time we spend can have so many demands. Balance seems hard to learn and understand, but remember, you have control of it. You decide what you will permit. So what does a balance in life mean to you? Do you consider it in all you do? Take the time to work hard, but also relax. Don't get worn down and overtaxed. Moderation in life is the key. Balance can result in feelings of happiness. So, whatever you do, may you find, work hard, but allow time to unwind. Thank you. Let's go ahead and sing the children out. You are on farm. Oh, I do see one. Yes, I'm good. Yay.
Thank you.
you read the reading. Now is our sacred time for joys and sorrows. If you're online, please write your joys or sorrows in the comments to be read aloud after our musical interlude. If you're here with us and would like a card to write it on, our ushers will distribute that. Or you're also welcome to just come up to the mic so we may hear your joy or your sorrow. The song that we'll be singing during that interlude is number 118, This Little Light of Mine. From Michelle Firestone, concern from my longtime friend and co-worker, Jody M., who is battling pancreatic cancer. We hold her in our heart and prayer. Are there any others to be shared? Yes, please, come on up.
Good morning. Good morning. Hi, everybody. I'm Liz Trotter. Nice to you all. Michelle and me and Kathy Larimer and Lizzie and the minister have been sort of a little subcommittee working with Rosa Diaz and her family. And so we had this brilliant idea that we were going to go get free school supplies yesterday. Got up really early. It hadn't been more than a mile long, the line of cars by the time I got there. And I left. I'm like, I don't even know if it'll reach us. I never really got to the end. So that being said, if anyone would like to help buy some school supplies and uniforms, please see me after. I have a little sheet for the uniforms for Allison, who actually babysat to buy her own school supplies this year. So she just needs help with some uniforms. So the need is great in the city. I noticed that yesterday. So that's a sorrow of mine too. And may they find a better way to organize this stuff, because those streets are so little and narrow and the line just went forever. I never. So anyway, thank you, but they're doing good. Allison's starting high school. All three will be in school, so Rosa will have a little more free time to get some work in the day. So she sends her love and thanks and said line.
Thank you. Please.
Okay, just
Come on
quickly.
up, please.
I just want to thank people who have been donating items for the Hygiene for the Homeless program. It's a joy that we can still keep that going. I know that the hotels don't give us the little free samples anymore, so, but anyway, I just wanted to thank those who have donated over the last few months, and please think of that when you have extra little personal hygiene items or gently used linens. We'll take those too for the homeless. Thank you. It's a joy.
Thank you. So we will light 2 more candles. One for the joys that haven't found words to be expressed or shared, and another one for the sorrows that are still deep within our hearts. And for those of you online who couldn't see the readings, they're very brief. The first from Rich Willis. Whenever ideas are shared, the result is always greater than the sum of the parts. And the second reading from Lily Tomlin. The trouble with the rat race is that when you win, you're still a rat.
I have a little personal joy of my own. About 9 years ago, Marilyn and I were on what she calls a writing retreat down in Pensacola, and I was working on the Great American Novel. And about 2 weeks into the visit down there, I realized that the novel was done. It was finished. I said, I finished the novel. That's not true. I finished the rough draft. I found out, it's very educational doing that. You know, I found out that when you finish, it's not finished. Anyway, it's finished now, and it's available if anybody wants to read it. Anyway, we had 2 more weeks to go at the time, and I decided I had all my writing equipment down there in Pensacola, so I said, well, I've got some essays that I've written about flying. I think I'll email these to a friend of mine who has a blog, a little flying blog. I wonder if he'd be interested in printing these. So I sent him about 4 of them, and he said, sure, that's great. So for the next 4 weeks, he put up one of my essays every week. And in the interim, I started thinking of other subjects, and I said, well, I think let me try some more of these. So I kept on cranking them out, and he kept publishing them. And that was 9 or 9.5 years ago, something like that. And at the end of August, I will have produced number 500.
Wow.
So I'll be celebrating myself a little bit. I never thought that was produced 500 essays. And speaking of essays, we have a program here started about 4 or 5 years ago by Reverend Darcy, which we call the Shared Pulpit. And it's a program where it's a little group that thinks it might be interesting to learn how to write and present a sermon. And Reverend Jim over here has done quite a few of them, and other members of the group have, whom you have heard giving these things. Many of them have been members of this group, and it's a very, very interesting thing. It lasts about 3 months, is that right? 3 or 4 months. This last time we met on Saturdays, and we learned a lot. It's a writing seminar. It's a writing class. Very interesting, very entertaining. And if you're successful, then you get a sermon out of the deal. So what I'm about to present to you is my sermon for this year. I've been participating in all of the programs, of which I think there have been 4 so far. And I've enjoyed each one of them even more than the last one. So, we're talking about stress and anxiety and all kinds of horrible stomach-wrenching things this Sunday. And that's part of life, I guess. When you wake up in the morning, your stress level is close to a 0, I guess, because you just woke up. And then I guess most of us about that time need to go to the bathroom, so we have our first little stressor of the day. We go stumbling on in there, and then we realize we're hungry, we go out and have breakfast. And so that's our little hunger stress drives us to wherever we're going to go to get breakfast. Those are normal kinds of stress. Those are stressors that are something we'd expect. And they're okay. I guess we have no objection to that kind of stress. But there are other stresses that may not be so okay. And that's the kind of stress I want to talk about today. Many of us who lead stressful lives and have more stress that's good for us seem to think they need to look around for some way to deal with that stress and anxiety. And that may be true. It may be that you are in a situation that you can't do anything about. And that's fine if it's absolutely necessary. But this morning I would like to suggest that maybe you're looking at the hole and not the donut. It could be that if you kind of withdraw a little bit and sit in a quiet room for a little while and think about where these stresses are coming from in your life, you may be able to come up with some creative way of changing that. Instead of having to deal with it, maybe you can eliminate it. Dare I say it? Are there changes in your life that you could be making that would mitigate these unnecessary stresses or these stresses that are not helpful to you? To start this thing, I have a pretty good image that a flying student of mine presented to me some years ago. When you start to fly a little airplane, there are scary parts to that. You go up there, it's real noisy, and there's vibrations, and you're up in a place where the motion is a little bit unfamiliar. I remember when I was first flying, I looked out at where the wing strut came up and joined the wing, and I was thinking, what if that should come loose or something? That wouldn't be too good, would it? And I know it wasn't going to happen, but those are just little things that you think about sometimes in the beginning of your flying. But flying was so much fun, and I was so highly motivated, it wasn't a really big issue with me. And I went ahead and had a very joyful experience learning how to fly. Well, this gentleman, years and years later, was a student of mine. He was a flying student, and he was really getting stressed out over those things, over the things that he was experiencing in his flying. One afternoon, he and I were sitting on the seawall out at the Lakefront Airport. And the seawall is, let's say it's about that wide, and it is made of concrete, and it's up in the air, maybe up to here. When you're standing on the tarmac, you're looking at the top of the seawall, right about here as I remember it. And so he and I climbed up on the seawall, and we had our legs dangling over that. And then on the other side of the seawall is Lake Pontchartrain, and that's down maybe 10 or 15 feet below. And he was telling me about these stressors that he was experiencing in his flying. And I think he was trying to get me to come out with some kind of a magic potion, that I could help him deal with this, because he liked flying too. His son was a pilot. And here's how he explained it to me. He says, look down at the tarmac over there where all those airplanes are tied down. And he says, imagine that you've got two parallel lines painted along the tarmac, and they're about as far apart as the width of this seawall we're sitting on. He said, if I gave you a bicycle and asked you to ride the bicycle between those two lines without having the bicycle touch either line, do you think you could do that? I looked at it, yeah, sure. Most of us who know how to ride a bike could do that. He said, now, let's suppose that bring the bike up here on top of the seawall. He says, you put it on the seawall, you think you can ride it down the seawall? Yeah, I guess I could do that. He said, now let's suppose that we hike the seawall up, maybe 10 or 20 feet, get a little higher. Could you do that? I'm saying, well, maybe not. He said, well, you can see where I'm going with this. Somewhere along the line, you're going to get the seawall high enough to where it's scarier than hell, and it's going to interfere with your doing what you want to do, right? Because you're going to have fear, you're going to have anxiety, you're going to have all kinds of doubt about whether or not you can do it. He says, that's what I'm going through with this flying. And I said, well, that's a good little model, I think. I think I'm going to remember that, and I did. It's probably 40 years ago that he told me that, and now I'm telling it to you. It's a good idea. Well, this guy, as you might imagine, wasn't getting out of it what he was putting into it. And finally, I sat him down and I said, look, you're miserable. When you get into the airplane, we taxi out there and you do the pre-takeoff checklist. And right before you call the tower ready to take off, you open up the window and you scream this word out the window that I will not repeat from the pulpit. and then we go off. I said, that's abnormal. I said, that tells me you're not having a good time. I said, so I have a very serious suggestion. Why don't you just give this up? Go play golf or something, or start a stamp collection. I don't think this is for you. And he says, I think you're right. So he did. He quit flying, and I lost a customer. But anyway, that's how he dealt with it, and I think that was an intelligent thing for him to do. It's an example of how maybe there might be something that you're not paying attention to in your life, and there's another way of dealing with your stress and your anxiety besides dealing with it. How about getting rid of it? Well, I've been under stress. When I was thinking about this sermon, I'm saying, what was the most stressful thing you ever went through? And in my case, it was going to graduate school. I decided I was going to be a professor because I wasn't making any money at teaching people to fly. I said, I think I'll go and get myself a PhD and be an English professor. I'll have to be a little office there, and I'll have a nice little coat with patches on the elbows, and I'll sit there and BS the general public, and they'll give me lots of money, and I'll get to give lectures and stuff. That'll be a lot of fun. So I signed up for the master's program up at LSU. I went up there and got me a little apartment, and I started in on the master's program. And about halfway through it, I found out that I was really struggling. I wasn't getting out of what I was putting into it. Actually, I wasn't putting very much into it because I was bored out of my skull. Every chance I got, I'd hop in my little Volkswagen and come down and visit Maryland here in New Orleans, or I'd go skydiving. I was a skydiver at that time. That was kind of like scratching an itch, but it wasn't much fun. And I was halfway through it. I spent a year and 2 summers doing this, so I guess I was a summer and half a year into it. And I'm thinking, I sure have a lot invested in this, so I've wasted. If I just quit now, this will all go to waste. All this misery that I'm having up here at this jock school. I'm trying to get a master's degree in English at this jock school. The only thing anybody cares about up here is the Tigers. How's the Tigers? So, anyway, I said, I think I'm just going to have to grit my teeth and like the conservatives say, pull up my bootstraps, something like that, and go ahead and just finish this thing. At least I'll have the degree in my pocket. I'll have something to show for all this misery. So I kept on plodding along with it. And I came to the end of it, and at the end they have these comprehensive exams you got to take. And it's supposed to cover all of the stuff that you've learned over the last year and a half. And so I went in there and I took the comprehensive, I took the foreign language exam, which I passed. I took something else, it was a history of the language, I passed that. And then I had to take this comprehensive exam, and bigger than hell I flunked it. there was another guy, and I were the two guys who flunked it. He was a priest. He was a Greek Orthodox priest. I don't know what was going on in his life, but he flunked the test too. So we were kind of celebrities for a while. Not a fun thing to do. Anyway, the head of the department brought me in, and he said, "Okay, boy, you're going to get another chance at this. And from now on, you got about 6 weeks to go. You got nothing else to do with your life but prep for this exam. Because after that one, if you don't make it this time, you're out of here." And I realized, I could flush it all down the toilet. It was awful. So, can you imagine the tension that's building up on that? All of this stuff that's now dependent on my passing this one exam. And I took the thing the second time, went back to my apartment. I remember I had hives on my hands. I was so nervous. Marilyn's nodding her head. She remembers how nervous I was. And one of my flying buddies said, he had a good term for that. He said, he's nervous as a poilu laying his first egg. That's how nervous I was. Well, one day, I got this envelope in the mail, and it was from LSU Department of English. Here it was. I had it in my hand, my trembling hand. This was for all the marbles. And I didn't want to open it. It was like Schrodinger's cat. You know that Schrodinger's cat? So as long as I didn't open it, I had a 50-50 chance of passing it. Right? Once I opened it, I'd either flunk it or I'd pass it. But before I opened it, at least I'd have a ray of hope. Anyway, finally I couldn't put it off any longer. I tore open the envelope and I passed. I had a master's degree, and I didn't even go to the commencement exercise. I took all my stuff, loaded it in my car, and took off for New Orleans, and I never went back, and I never looked back, and I never thought back. So in a way, you could say, after all, I proved that I was not cut out to be a scholar, right? Because everybody says, master's degree, nothing to that. That's just one little old deal. They told me that several times. I said, look, if the PhD, they say that stands for pound higher and deeper, I don't need that. So I learned a hard lesson, didn't I? I learned that I was not cut out to do that. Didn't know where I was going from there. But pretty soon after that, I found myself out at the airport. By that time, I was a private pilot, and I passed the test for that. And I was just hanging out in the pilot lounge on Saturday morning, and we had a bunch of line crew in there in the air conditioner taking a break, having a cup of coffee. Saturday morning, and it was in the summertime, I remember it was really hot. And we had the color TV going on in there, and they were showing cartoons with all the kids that were off school, and they were, every Saturday morning the kids would gather in front of the TV. Do you have kids that watch cartoons? We had the Roadrunner and the Coyote, I remember. And the Roadrunner chasing the Coyote, and the Coyote, or the Coyote chasing around off the cliff and all that stuff. And these guys were watching those cartoons with great attention. They weren't just watching it, they were digging it. Get that sucker! Oh! Watch out, he's got dynamite under that bucket. They were participating in this thing. And I'm thinking to myself, I took a deep breath. I said, this is about as far from academia as you can go. I don't know where else I could go, and I'd see people doing this. They're not even screaming for the tigers, they're screaming for the Roadrunner and the Coyote. I said, maybe this would be a good place for me to blow off a little steam, unwind a little bit. So that's what I did. I went to the boss, and I said, hey, boss, I said, I just got out of college and I'm looking for a job. And I said, would you have anything that you're looking? He said, yeah, I need an office manager. Would you like to run the schedule? He says, I always like to hire somebody with a pilot certificate. You got a private pilot certificate? And we'll give it a try. I said, well, I'll do it. So I showed up the next Monday, and I was the office manager. That means I ran the schedule, I phoned customers and reminded them they had an appointment. I kept track of how much gas each airplane had in it and what instructor was going to be assigned to what student. And I also emptied the garbage cans. I did all kinds of interesting things here. But I've taken that pressure level from 80 feet up in the air down to sea level. Right? I was driving my bicycle down the ring. And it had the desired effect. I'd get up in the morning and I would just breeze on to work. And of course, as you can imagine, it wasn't a very challenging job, and it didn't yield much money. But it was a good change for me. Well, let's see. The boss liked my work, and he encouraged me to keep doing it. In fact, he made it possible for me to go ahead and use the school airplanes to get my commercial rating and then my flight instructor certificate. I've been teaching the ground school very successfully in the evenings, so he could see I knew how to do that. First thing you know, I'm a flight instructor, a certificated flight instructor. And I just about doubled my pay from half of nothing up to nothing now. And I found out I was pretty good at it. And all my students were graduating, they're passing their tests, they seemed to be having a good time. I had a full schedule going. And one day I woke up and 6 years had gone by. And I was still working for this little outfit where I'd taken this job to get rid of the pressure. And my initial plan was to stay with it for maybe 3 months and then go find myself a job. So I'm thinking, what's going on here? And then the next thing that happened was my little Volkswagen Beetle needed to go into the shop for some maintenance. I took it into the shop, and when I went to pick it up, I found out I didn't have enough money to pay the bill for a Volkswagen. I said, what's the matter with this picture? You know, the guy with a hard-won master's degree in his pocket, and he's not making enough money to support a Volkswagen Beetle. That doesn't make much sense. So I went into the boss and I said, look, boss, by the way, back in these days, we were having double-digit inflation. I see a lot of gray hair in the audience. I bet you a lot of y'all remember double-digit inflation. Not good, right? At one point, I remember 12% a year. Your money became 12% less valuable every year. And of course, your house, if you had a house, your house was worth 12 times as many dollars a year later as it had, just because of inflation. So it was a good idea to buy a house, right? Buy real property. But inflation is high. That's a good anchor in the sand against inflation. So Marilyn, being much smarter than I am about money, she said, well, let's start buying some houses, and then we can rent out the houses. And when the inflation inflates the value of the house, we can raise the rents. And we've got a fixed rate note, and we'll still be paying the same amount of note every month, but we can raise the rents and we'll make more money. And we did that. And it's a very small deal, and we were making a little bit, that the houses were throwing off enough money to pay their own bills, and we were gathering equity in the house every time we paid on the note. And so we were accumulating a little bit of money, and this was supposed to be our never spend money. This is what we're going to build up for our retirement. So that was working out fairly well. And I took a job as a teacher at West Jefferson High School. I'm the only person I'm aware of in the history of education who ever took a job as a classroom teacher to increase his income. But believe it or not. So I went in there, and I had my first year of teaching, and that was fun. I enjoyed that. In fact, I was in the middle of something I didn't even know I was in the middle of. It was the last year that West Jefferson was segregated, so I had all white students the first year I taught. The second year I taught, they integrated the place. So I was one of the teachers at West Jefferson High School. The first year they had the boys, girls, black people, white people, yellow people, everybody together, mixed up in there. That was quite an adventure. And it was really, it was one of those things I cherish. I wouldn't trade that for anything, because the kids did a good job with that. They were, first and foremost, they were teenagers, and they made friends, and everything was working pretty smoothly. Out in the community, it wasn't working so smoothly, but within the school, we actually had a really good year that year. Well, the following year, they decided that they were going to segregate the sexes. So they were going to have a boys' high school and a girls' high school. And I said, no, I don't want any part of that. That doesn't. Half of the fun of this job is having the boys and the girls together and the interaction of the two sexes. So I said, I don't want this. So, bye-bye. I got me a job at Metairie Park Country Day School, which was integrated. And I had been matriculated from there in 1960. I was a graduate of Country Day School. And they gave me a job teaching physics. Now that I had my master's degree in English, they gave me a job teaching physics. And it was a tough job interview. They were asking me different things. They asked me if I did I know anything about physics? I said, well, I don't know too much about it, but I'm good at teaching, and I'll go to Tulane over the summer, and I'll take physics then. You know? Oh, okay, well, we'll pay for that. Well, that's good. And so here's another stressful situation I got myself into. I was taking 8 semester hours of freshman physics at Tulane University, which has a med school, and they got a lot of science nerds in there. And I was going to have to complete that in 3 months and then go do that for a living. That was another stressful one, but I kind of knew what I was doing by that time, and I got through that. I didn't have this feeling of hopelessness at that time. I knew I was going to do it because I had this job waiting for me. And sure enough, I started off, I came in the first day to the senior class, the advanced course in physics that the seniors took at this high school. I said, good morning, gentlemen. We didn't have any girls in there. I went out and recruited some girls in the future, but we just had some guys. I said, gentlemen, I have some bad news and good news for you. Bad news is I've got a master's degree in English. And the good news is I just took the course that you're going to take next year when you go to college. And I know exactly what's in that course, and I'm going to teach it to you now, and you're going to have an easy A when you go to college. So just listen to what I'm saying, and we had a good time. They taught me more than I taught them, I think. Anyway, that was okay. So we got going on a lifestyle that was working pretty well. The FAA, by that time, the Federal Aviation Administration, had given me a job giving check rides to people for pilot licenses. It's called being a designated pilot examiner. And I was making a little bit of money from that, a little bit of money from rental houses, a little bit of money from the teaching job. In other words, I was pretty much putting together a living from this. Marilyn was out. She was probably making more money than I was. She was a teaching supervisor with Jefferson Parish. So we were doing all right. And how many years went by? About 20 years went by with us doing this. And we were, rocking along. But we weren't seeing much of each other. I mean, we had a marriage going and everything, but once in a while we'd pass each other in the hall and wave at each other. She'd be on her way out, I'd be on my way in. We were very busy, let's put it that way. And so one day we sat down and we said, this could be working better. We're man and wife, we love each other, we enjoy each other, and we never seem to be able to see each other. Why don't we reserve some time for ourselves? And so we made a particular time that we knew that we were going to be together and we'd have it for ourselves. And if we had any work from work, we just put it off because this was the first priority for us. And we both agreed to that. And one night we were sitting in a bar room in a hotel down in the port having a drink and solving the problems of the world. And I said, listen, I've been doing this for over 20 years, and I feel like you remember Sydney had that song that the Golden Rut or something like that, or was it the Velvet Rut? You remember that song she used to sing, Sydney, the redhead? Yes. That was my favorite song. Anyway, I was in one of those, the Velvet Rut. I hadn't started anything new in quite a few years. And I was thinking, I'd like to write the great American novel, but I didn't have time to do it. I'd like to think of something else besides what I'm doing. So Marilyn says, we'll take care of that. She's really good as a problem solver. And she said, let's make a little list of the things that you spend time on, and we'll arrange it so that you'll have some time. So we made a little list of all the things I've been doing, and sure enough, there was no time left out. Everything on that list was things that I was obligated to do or things that I wanted to do, and there was no holes in the schedule. I was really time compromised. So we're looking at each other, and I realized there was this elephant sitting over in the side of the room in the shadows where nobody would recognize him, and that was my job teaching physics. Full-time job. Over the years, I'd become a veteran teacher, and they had increased my responsibilities at work, spending more and more time doing that. I said, if I can get rid of this job teaching physics, I'll bet you I'd have plenty of time. And Marilyn says, that's not a bad idea. So we thought that over a little bit, and by the time we finished our martinis, we had agreed in principle that that's what I was going to do. And speaking of the principal, I went to the principal, and they called him the headmaster at our school. And that following Monday, I told him I wouldn't be renewing my contract next year because I was going to retire and go write the great American novel. He said, well, okay. I said, unless you want to hike my pay up to something reasonable. I didn't come in here thinking I was going to pressure you to raise my pay. That's not what I'm here for. What I'm here for is I want to get out of this rut. He said, okay, well, I understand that. So that's what I did. And it worked out fine. One of the caveats was that I not volunteer for anything. Marilyn had resigned, she had retired from her job, and she found out as soon as people found out that she had all this time, they'd ask her to volunteer for stuff. And she's very bad about that. I don't know if you noticed, but she volunteers very easily. She's an easy woman in that regard. But, so I said, okay, I'll stick to business here and find something worthwhile to plug into this empty time. So I did that, and that was good. One other little anecdote I wanted to mention before I got off the country day thing is that one of the teachers, while I was teaching there, came to me and told me that she felt a lot of tension in her job. She says, on Sunday evening, when they put 60 Minutes on TV and they start going tick, 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 she says, that's a stressor for me. And all those ticks are like, somebody's beating me with a baseball bat because I know tomorrow I've got to go back to work and I've got all that stuff to do. And she said, you don't seem to be suffering that at all. She said, what do you do? Do you meditate? Do you do yoga or what? I said, no. They don't pay me enough here to get worried like that. I know for sure that if I should ever get into that condition, I'd be out of here the next day. So there's another example of my proclivity to avoid stress rather than coping with it. And I said another thing, I've set out a little rule that I'll never work for a company that is so big that I don't have access to the chief executive officer. So I can remember several times when I had some beefs in that job, and I'd go right to the headmaster and walk into his office, usually without an appointment, and I'd unload on him. And I just felt free to do that. I think that's a good thing to consider if you're looking for something to do for a job, if you're going to work for somebody else. And there's a limit to the amount of time that I was going to put in on that job every day. I forget what it was. I think it was 10 hours. If I got to 10 hours, I'd been working on my science teaching job for 10 hours, and there were still some things that I had to do. I just put them off. If they didn't get done, they didn't get done. So I knew that there was that limit that I'd imposed on myself. And by the way, I can't remember a single time when I had to use that rule. I never ever worked 10 hours a day. But it was a limitation. It was just something that I had, a little lifeline that I'd given myself. So there's a couple of little things that I had been using to mitigate my stress. So anyway, now I've got all that done. That's behind me. One day I started writing essays, these flying essays that I told you about, and I kept on flying, writing them. And now I've done 500 of them, and I'm still going strong, still enjoying it a great deal. And the guy said he'd double my pay every year. And I've been doing it 9.5 years. And sure enough, he's doubled my pay every year that I've been writing these essays. I started out getting 0, and I'm still getting, I'm getting 0 factorial. But it's a very satisfying job, and it relaxes me. I feel that my pay is a big pile of essays that I've created. Some of them are better than others, some of them are worse than others, but I like them, and they get published. They get sent out to 1,500 people, so I got to believe that once in a while somebody may read one. So it's got me in a very good place right now. And I know there's probably a few potholes in the great highway of life. I haven't quite come to them yet. And I'm not going to let that bug me too much, since I'm right where I want to be right now. This church, by the way, relaxes me a lot. Being with you guys really helps me to keep myself mentally where I want to be. I have a whole group of friends who I trust, who are good at giving me advice. Once in a while, I've come up here and told you something that's bugging me, and invariably somebody will come up to me at coffee hour and help me out with that. So that's good. So I highly recommend being a member of a group like this that's like-minded. And so that's what I have to say this morning. I'd like to give one last reading, which is the title of a book by Jim Lehrer. The title of the book was "Everybody is Entitled to My Opinion." That's how I'm offering this piece of advice here. So thank you for your attention, and namaste.
Thank you, Alan. Appreciate you sharing with us. Now is the time for our offering. Community Church Unitarian Universalist is a self-sustaining congregation. Members and friends, generosity help us do the sacred work of bringing justice, spirituality, and compassion to our community and beyond. You can give online at ccuunola.org/stewardship, or by text at 504-370-2659, text GIVE. You can also send a check to CCUU at 6690 Fleur de Lis Drive, New Orleans, 70124, or simply put something in the dish as we pass it out. Thank you for your generosity.
And we're going to sing now is number 346. Come sing a song with me. We extinguish the chalice here, that it might flow gently in our hearts. May it light your path as you leave this place. May it guide your way until we are together again. The benediction is from the back of your book, number 636. O source of peace, lead us to peace, a peace profound and true. Lead us to a healing, to a mastery of all that drives us to war within ourselves and with others. The last hymn is going to be number 169, and that's everybody's favorite hymn. So go look it up. All of our hymns have easy words.